Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to me ranking through the Marvel X-Men United characters. There are 80 different heroes, and I'm going to go through them 10 at a time, starting from number 80 in this video and going up to number 1. Realize, of course, that these are my opinions. I'm just giving you my favorite characters. I'm not saying they're ranked in power order, although powerful characters, I do tend to like them a lot. But I'm ranking them and how much I like to play them. So in this case, I gave them the rankings based on their stats. I went through and counted the stats. I've played every hero against every villain, not every hero against every villain, but I played every hero and every villain in the game. Many heroes I played multiple times. And so these are just my rankings. Realize I'm not going to be ranking these against the original Marvel United because, come on now, I need to sleep at some point. I will probably do a comparison between Marvel United and X-Men United at some point in the future. But for now, let's take a look at the heroes, starting with the bottom at number 80. Number 80 was unfortunately a really easy choice for me, and that here is Deadpool. And it's mostly just because of the stupidity of the character. I mean, he's definitely one of the best fighters, so many ways for him to attack, not very good at helping people. He has all his cards are special, with the exception of the single wild and double wild. They're all special. But I hate these breaking the fourth wall cards, where you draw the top 2 cards from this Deadpool Chaos deck, which could be anything. Anything. I mean, just insanely weird and crazy cards. Like even, for example, this one here. The last player to attend a pool party draws a card. Anyone who's never been to a pool party takes 1 damage. I really dislike that sort of thing. And just the rest of his cards are kind of cool, but happily, Lady Deadpool has kind of the same effect without the idiocy of this breaking the fourth wall stuff, so she's going to be higher on the list. But yeah, when I was making the list, this was the first one I knew that would be in the bottom, and yes, all the way down to number 80. Then we come to number 79 here, Sunfire. I've never really been a huge fan of Sunfire in the comics, but that doesn't really affect my ratings here for this. The reason I'm not a big fan of Sunfire is because his stats are not particularly good across the board. They're okay, and he has a lot of move combo cards. The problem I have is his specials. I just don't like them. First of all, he has the Solar Fire card, which does 1 damage to everything in an adjacent location, and also gets rid of the people that you need to rescue there. If there's a lot of thugs, that's great, but it's very specific, and it has no icons on the bottom of the card. I just don't find that very useful. And then this one here, which says he gets a fighting token for each location with nobody at it, with no civilians and no thugs. You know how rare that is in my games? There's almost always somebody at a location. So that it seems like, oh wow, if you clear out a lot of locations, it's powerful, and it could be. But I just don't find that interesting. This is just not a character that I like to use much at all, which is why he's near the bottom. Number 78 is Angel. Kind of a cool figure. I like how Angel looks. Although in the comics, I mean, they definitely turned him into Archangel because Angel flies. That's not really that exciting. But his cards here, he has very good movement. Some of the best movement in, not some of the best movement in the game, but decent movement in the game, especially since he can move to any location with these attack from above cards. He has double movement cards that really helps. And he's more heroic than most of the characters, especially since his Worthington Industry resources, because he's rich, that's his superpower, by the way. He can distribute 2, of these heroic tokens from the pool amongst any number of heroes. Well, that's kind of cool, but it's not enough, especially with this attack from above. I don't mind this move to any location and defeat 2 thugs there. That could be really handy. But again, I don't think it's worth then having a blank bottom of the card. Those just really bug me. I don't like using them in games. They're like a lack of teamwork, so that's why he's near the bottom for me. Warpath probably has his uses, and again, this is kind of a personal list for me. I'm not saying he's one of the weaker characters. I just don't find him very fun or interesting to play. He has a couple extra wilds, and these are good wilds. The superhuman physical abilities, which basically says, not only does he get a wild, but it's an extra attack and draw a card. That's pretty awesome. But his acute senses here, where you can move and also look at the top card, the master plan deck, and put it back on top. That's cool, except half the time you look at it right before it happens. You might be able to go do something. You might be able to say, okay, if Warpath is first in a round, that's better. I don't find that to be particularly exciting. Again, he has only a couple single icons, a lot of double icons. His stats are not bad. I mean, they're not great either. They're just kind of okay across the board. To me, he's just not very exciting to play, which puts him near the bottom of the list. 76 is Feral, and I have a hard time maybe explaining why Feral's down so far on the list, because again, her stats are not terrible. Her attack, she has these claws and teeth card, which, you know, lets you move and do a double attack, which I like. Unfortunately, the double attack doesn't pass on to anybody else. Her acute senses, if she's going to take damage or be assigned to crisis tokens, you can flip this card face down to ignore it. I don't know if I like that. Yes, you can ignore the crisis token, but having a face down card doesn't help the teammate. She provides teammates with some movement and some heroic tokens. These here aren't particularly bad, but yeah, just she doesn't, again, I have to rank these people from 1 to 80, and Feral just doesn't really excite me that much. Also, I don't find her an interesting character at all in the X-Men universe, but that doesn't really affect this. Now, this one is a surprise even to me, to have Rogue so low on the list. And for two reasons. One, I like her as a character, but her abilities, her cards, I thought would be fantastic, the special ones. We'll get to those in a second. She has an extra wild, so that's not bad. But once you take that wild away, her stats aren't particularly good, and she has several cards with only one icon on the bottom. But let's take a look at these two cards. So, Power Absorption here. Use the action symbols at the bottom of another Powers card in a storyline, then turn that card face down. That's not bad, actually. I think that's better than this one. Use a special effect of another player's card, and then turn that card face down. Now, here's the thing. Both these cards could be amazing, and they tend to be the kind of power that I like. I like copying other cards. I've just had the worst luck with them. It just never seems to work out right. They come, and you're like, well, that power is not exactly the way I want to use it. Don't get me wrong, you mix her with someone like Phoenix or someone who has a lot of symbols on the bottom of the card, and Rogue was probably amazing. And I could imagine that of all the ones I have this low, this would be one that people disagree with me on. And maybe I come back in a year or two and Rogue has moved higher on the list. But for now, she's just down here near the bottom. This is one of my top characters in the Marvel Universe, if not my favorite character, ICEMAN. Cool model here. Completely translucent, although I don't know how we're going to do painting of him. Maybe put a little bit of white on him to show some ice. I'm not sure. I'm not a painter. But his cards are fine. So when you look at ICEMAN's stats, well, yeah, I mean, I kind of gave him not too great of stats, but he has more rescuing than most people do. So that is a benefit. And he has several double stat cards. The problem is, I really like his organic ice body, which says you can't take any damage till the beginning of your next turn. That's fine. That's pretty powerful, although every time I play it, the villain doesn't do damage. ICEMAN does it to somebody else. This one here, which it puts a stun token on a villain or henchman in your location. Next turn, their BAM is canceled and the token's discarded. That's such a cool card. I just wish it was tied with a move on the bottom. So many times I get this card, I want to play it, but the previous card doesn't have a move, or you're struggling to get a move because you need to move to where the villain is. Hey, if the villain lands on you, this is an amazing card. But this rescuing at the bottom doesn't really jive with the top of the card. And almost I wish it would, because you feel like ICEMAN would have an ice slide. Which the other ICEMAN does from First Class, and you'll notice that the First Class ICEMAN is higher on the list than this one. But the idea of ICEMAN works, but I don't find him to be as cool in action as the cards make me feel like he could be. I have mixed feelings about Bob. I mean, on one hand, the Bob in the comic is pretty funny. He's an agent of Hydra that's basically a straight man and for Deadpool. But I don't know that he needed his own character, let alone become a villain. But we'll talk about that on the villain list. He has a lot of specials here that you'll notice. He has more specials than many other people. And his specials can be really good, except they always have some sort of cost to them. Here, this is a wild. Well, 2 more wilds. But then I draw a master plan and place it face down. or give a crisis token each hero if there are effects in the game that use them. I hate that. I don't think it's worth the extra stuff. And that's kind of the way a lot of his stuff is. Like here, he gets a wild token, but everyone else has to discard an action token if they have any. Now you can kind of set that up, and you can work with these, which is why he's not at the bottom of the list. Even his negative card here, Run Away, I think this one's actually a good card because if a villain ends your movement, you must move to the next clockwise location unless you're trying to kill the villain and punch the villain. He also has single stats at the bottom of all his cards. So I think he's kind of included in the game like, ha ha ha, nobody's worse than Bob. No, actually Deadpool is worse than Bob. But he's still not fantastic, which is why he's in this bottom 10. Alpha Flight. All right, so Alpha Flight, you're going to find they're not in the top tier for me. But Puck is the lowest of Alpha Flight. So his starting card here, as long as it's face up in the storyline, you can ignore damage dealt by a henchman each villain turn. That's much better if there's a lot of henchmen in the game, but most of the villains don't have henchmen. I will give Puck, model-wise, one of the best in the game. I actually think Puck's a cool character. He's my second Alpha Flight person after Box, who, incidentally, isn't in X-Men United. This is not bad, his acrobatic fighting style. I do want to talk a little bit about this one here. So this is the Alpha Flight card, which gives you a token for each face-up Alpha Flight card in the storyline. So if you play with a full team of Alpha Flight, these cards can be pretty powerful, except there's only one in each, unlike, say, the Fantastic Four, who have two of them. And so I played with full teams of Alpha Flight. I played with Alpha Flight a lot because I wanted to see Alpha Flight do well. They just don't come across as strongly as I'd like them to be. And so that, coupled with Puck's just okay stats, I mean, he has a decent fighting, and he has an extra wild, so, I mean, that's kind of cool. And this swapping a threat card with one in an adjacent location, that in the right circumstance, that can be pretty cool. I like that. But I don't know. He just doesn't excite me. And I'm like, oh, I'm playing with Puck. Well, give me one of the X-Men instead. And finally, rounding out our top or bottom 10 here, another Alpha Flight member, NORTHSTAR. So NORTHSTAR, the positive thing for NORTHSTAR is his speed. Good speed, and his starting hand card here, as long as it's face up in the storyline, when you do an action, you can take another action hero with you. When I played with NORTHSTAR, and I played with NORTHSTAR almost more than any other character, because again, I was trying to get Alpha Flight to work. He's my starting person, because I'll take him, grab someone, and run to another location. But then what? And that's the problem. He has lots of movement. It's good to give people movement, but he doesn't seem to have a lot else. His concussive blasts are not bad. I don't dislike these. You know, you have two attacks, split as you want, and you're in adjacent locations. That's good, and that's why I like him better than Puck. And then he also has one of these Alpha Flight cards that never really takes off. Yeah, so he's cool. He's decent, and he almost made it out of the bottom 10. But I like 70 characters better than him. So there you go. That's my bottom 10. Now realize, with the exception of Deadpool, and probably Sunfire, and probably Angel, and probably... No, okay, I would play with most of these, because I like playing with all different characters. And I don't care if they're quote-unquote my favorite characters, but in this particular instance, I had to put 10 at the bottom, and these are just 10 that I don't particularly enjoy. However, things are going to get better and higher for me as we have 70 more heroes to go. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel, and these have been 10 heroes in the X-Men universe that I like the least. Number 78. Oh, this is the wrong one. Crap on a stick.